The mayor of Jerusalem and Israel's special envoy for trade and innovation, Flor Hassan Nahum. Thank you so much for joining us here on Scripps News Weekend. Saturday, President Biden told reporters here in the U.S. that he was informed of the bodies of the hostages being found, then said Israel and Hamas were on the verge of a ceasefire deal. I want to listen to what the president had to say and get your thoughts on the other side.
I think we're on the verge of having an agreement. It's just time to end it, time to finish it.
Why do you think you're on the verge of an agreement? How optimistic are you?
Still optimistic because the leaders of both have met in Egypt. Our people are continuing to meet, and we think we can close the deal. They've all said they agree on the principles. So keep your fingers crossed.
What do you feel these murders say about the realities of an imminent ceasefire? Are we actually close to a deal at this point?
I'm really not sure. It's a very sad day here for everyone in Israel. Everybody feels like it's their children that they're mourning. Myself personally, connected to one of the families, to Hirsch's family, and we really, really believed that they were going to come home. And everybody was working towards getting them home. And I'm not sure how close to a deal we were, because remember, 5 times a deal has been offered to Hamas since the first deal back in November. And 6 times, they have rejected the deal, all the time adding new conditions. So I understand that people are heartbroken and angry, but the fault lies on Hamas, who murdered these innocent people, murdered them as they knew that the Israeli troops were getting closer to rescuing them.
And as our international correspondent Sarah Coates mentioned, there are a lot of people on the streets of Tel Aviv who are protesting, saying that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has held up progress, has not negotiated a deal and gotten things done. Your response to that, and what should we see from the Prime Minister in the next days and weeks ahead in light of what's happened in the last 24 hours?
There's definitely a feeling in Israel that more could have been done by the Prime Minister and by the cabinet to get out the hostages, to capitulate on certain very key conditions in order to get them out. And that is how people feel, and I can understand that feeling. If it was your family member, my family member, I would feel exactly the same. But again, whilst some of that might be true, we cannot a lot blame to the Israeli government when it's Hamas who murdered these innocent victims. It's Hamas who kidnapped them from a festival. Perhaps more could have been done. It's almost like a Sophie's choice for the government of Israel. Do you give back key security locations that could allow more terrorists to come in and more armaments to come in? Or do you save the remaining hostages that are alive? I know that I certainly would have done everything in my power to save the hostages, but it really is a Sophie's choice.
And that has been illustrated in the disagreements that we've seen amongst the Israeli government. The far-right Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has repeated calls for the government not to enter into a deal with Hamas that would see the release of Palestinian prisoners or sacrifice control of the Philadelphia corridor. We've seen infighting within the Israeli government over the handling of the war altogether and the process of safely getting hostages returned back home. Do you feel the Israeli government will ultimately come to a consensus on how to end this war? And, is there a path forward that you see that could bring consensus at this point?
Well, I think there's consensus about the fact that Hamas can no longer continue to rule the Gaza Strip because they pose an existential threat. But of course, the lives of the hostages have always been a priority, at least for the people of Israel. I hope also for the government of Israel and also for the military establishment. I think the most important thing in Israel at the moment now is to keep unity in a very difficult time when people are angry, and you can understand why they're angry. And I've always said from the beginning, ultimately, the people making these decisions have to think like it's their children and their too, and not other people's children, because they're all our children. It could have happened to any of our children. And that's how I feel, and many people like me feel.
As you said, just a tragic day, a tragic outcome for these families. Flor Hassan Nahum, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, both the Harris and Trump campaigns